Sup nerds, I'm Tom. Paris has some colors, let's talk about it. Colors of Paris is a worker placement game where you place workers out to gather paints and then spend those paints to paint paintings. So you're getting resources and spending those resources for points, and that's pretty straightforward, right? Well, there are a few little twists in this game that make it a bit unique. First of all, when you place your workers out, you don't immediately get whatever you're placing. So you are mostly gathering paints, or you can take first player. You're mixing paints, so you can mix yellow and red to make orange. If you didn't know that made orange, this is news to you. The first little twist is that when you place a worker, you don't immediately get whatever you placed it there to get. So I mean, most of the spots are getting paints, mixing paints. So you could take, yellow and blue and make green. I had to look at the board to remind myself what made green. You can use those paints to paint paintings, which is the main way that you get points. There's also some places on here that you can upgrade your, your art studio or whatever, your little player board, move up these tracks, so that way the actions that you do them a little bit better. You can mix paints faster, you can paint paints faster, and all that kind of stuff. But it's only after everybody's placed all their workers, then you go around laying a worker down in order to trigger that action. So the very first thing I could do would be to come here to get blue paint, but then when it comes back around that we've all placed our workers, I'll go, ooh, that's not the most important thing for me to do first. The first thing I should do should be to upgrade my paint things, so that way when I gain blue paint, I gain more blue paint. It also is very significant. That timing issue is significant because there is a place where you can copy another worker's. Okay, you got blocked. I wanted to go to the blue paint. You went to the blue paint instead of me. I'm going to go to the copy another worker spot so I can also gain blue paint. Well, if you go ahead of me and you use the blue paint spot, like you lay that worker down, I cannot copy a laid down worker. So that another interesting way of why that timing is significant. The other and probably bigger reason why the worker placement aspect of this game is a bit unique is that this board rotates throughout the game. After every round, it will rotate one, clockwise one step, so to speak. And there is a space where you can go, where you can decide that it's either not going to rotate this turn or it's going to rotate twice. So, I guess one other thing that makes it a little bit unique is that when you pull all your workers off, you don't pull one guy off. You leave one dude on there, so that way when it rotates, now that dude's already at this spot. So that can be extra significant for that rotating of, okay, well, you thought you kept that guy there because you thought it was going to rotate once and you'll be able to just get that red paint action or whatever. Well, I'm going to say it doesn't rotate. I'm going to say it rotates twice, so to kind of mess up your plans a little bit there. And there are block spaces. There's two spots, depending on where it's sitting, where those spots are unavailable. So you can say, ooh, I'm not going to rotate it this turn, so that way that spot that you really needed last turn that you didn't get because it was blocked, it's still blocked. And all of those things do make the game pretty interesting. I'm not saying I'm getting sick of worker placement, but when worker placement is very similar to other worker placement games I've seen, as nothing new, I kind of a little bit roll my eyes and say, well, what's the point, right? This one definitely has some differences and some cool things. Now, that is not to say that I don't have any complaints with the game. I have complaints with almost every game, and here are a couple of them. One of the big actions you do, one of the things that at least I felt like I wanted to spend a lot of time doing, is upgrading my little palace here or whatever, right? So I move up these tracks, and you have to spend an action and paint to do that, so that way every time you trigger that action, which is gather paint, paint to painting, and mix paints, you can do them better. When you get a little bit past halfway, you have a point where you can either get another worker or get a 6-point token, so you get 1 point for every notch above that you've made. And then if you can get it all the way to the end, you get that 6-point token can turn into a 10-point token, or you can, if you didn't get the 6-point token, you just straight up get a 10-point token. That whole thing is really cool and really interesting, and I love that, the upgrading your own thing here and get more workers. I like that aspect of games where you can make yourself better and as you're doing the things that you need to do. However, the real complaint here is that the game is too short, because I really want to work on this and get it good and then have a decent amount of turns where I'm doing a lot of stuff really well and I have extra workers and I'm really crushing. I want to feel more powerful and doing things better. But what triggers game end is there's only two paintings. Once you paint two paintings, that triggers the end of the game. And I think it ends immediately. It ends not immediately, but it ends that round. It's not like you finish that round and you have one more. I think so. And it's funny that that's actually the same complaint that I had with Atelier, the other painting game that I played recently. This one more so, though. This one feels that it ends even faster. It's actually kind of funny that I played this, Atelier, and Fresco all kind of within the same like 2 week period. I'm like, oh wow, I've just played all the painting games. Those are all the painting games. And the last game we played, that issue particularly mattered because I almost ended the game with 0 points. I spent so much time focusing on building this thing up, which I guess is a live and learn type of thing, right? The more you play the game, the more you realize, well, maybe I shouldn't be focusing on this that much. Just get it up to the point where it's now helping me enough, so it's a significant gain, but not like burning all the way to the end. Like I don't know if anybody ever is really going to get to the end. Getting to the middle is pretty tough in general. You have to really focus on it because you need to spend resources to do it. It's not just an action. You have to gain resources and spend them in order to move up the tracks. And also having extra workers sounds really good, but I don't think anybody would ever have all 6 of their workers because again, having an extra worker is good, but 6 points is significant. So maybe taking that 6 points is better than taking the worker, which sounds crazy. In a worker placement game, having more workers is always the best thing, right? Well, I guess not really in this game. The other big complaint that I have with the game is there are special player powers here, and they actually fit, nicely in here. Like, so you can either just be a painter for whatever reason, you want to be Vincent van Gogh or whatever, but if you flip it over, hey, there's a special ability that you have that nobody else has. Those didn't feel that great. They felt kind of imbalanced. Now, granted, it's probably been playtested a lot more than I've actually played it, but some of them just, especially, we played a game where, let's say, so each time you perform the acquire yellow pigment action, you can immediately paint 1 to 2 yellow spaces, which would be on a 1 to 2, which could be on 1 or 2 paintings. So as you're gaining paint, you can paint with them. With yellow, that same one exists for blue, and that same one exists for red too. So there's the yellow, red, and blue that are a faster mechanic, right? As I'm gaining them, I'm painting with them, so I don't have to spend an extra action to apply those paint to paintings. So that's like a rush out the game kind of one. So we played with all 3 of those, and then I was Vincent van Gogh, where you can keep 16 pigments rather than 12 as you go around, as the game goes on. So I can hold more. So that's sort of like a long game strategy versus fast game strategies. And the fast game strategies absolutely crushed. And some of them just like that type of pairing just doesn't feel right, especially when the game, you control how long the game is. Well, then I'm probably going to want to rush out the game versus the person who wants the game to go longer. You know what I mean? I would actually prefer this game without the player powers, and you just play. It's very rare that I feel like player powers detract from a game, but in this instance, I would rather play without them mostly, unless maybe it was like 2 players and they both had those very similar powers. But even that. Also, there are these cards that are bonus cards that I haven't played with, so there is a more advanced aspect to the game that I have not yet tried, so I don't want to touch on it, but I do want to mention that this is a part of the game too. Another thing that's really nice that they included are these little easels that hold the cards up, and I like that, but as you just saw, they don't really do a great job. I wish they were leaned back a little bit more, so these like sat a little bit slanted, so they had more weight to them, so it was less easy. I mean, I know they're cars, so they're really light, so it's probably going to be an issue no matter what. But if these were ever so slightly back, would have been better. Other than that complaint, though, the components of the game are really nice. I like these painter meeples. Cubes are cubes, but they're good cubes at least, and the art looks good. I like these double layered boards. I do have a few big complaints with the game. But those caveats aside, maybe I would play it to like 3 paintings instead of 2 to trigger game end, and play without the special player powers. So I do enjoy the game. I like it. I don't think I love it. I probably like it a little bit better than Atelier. They're very different games, but they're both about painting, and I played them both recently. So I'm going to compare them. There we go. If any of what I was talking about in this video sounds interesting to you, I'm going to put a purchase link to this game in the description box down below. Get yourself a copy, and while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.